You can be seated. So we'd like to welcome everyone who's gathered here today, as well as all those who are joining us over the internet for the memorial of Eric Holmes. Eric was born on May 6th, 1953 in Saskatoon to Leland and Norma Holmes, where he was raised along with his brothers, Marvin and Kelly. Eric survived by his wife, Diane Holmes, his brother, Marvin Holmes, and his wife, Sharon, his niece, Jennifer Chupa, and her husband, Jason, and their two children, Cameron and Reed, his nephew, Michael Holmes, and wife, Larissa, and their two children, Cecilia and Sophia, and his sister-in-law, Janice Holmes. If you knew Eric, he was a man who really loved his family. He had a very close bond with his parents. He loved them. A very close bond with his mother, Norma. Eric's mother was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and she, by her fine example and training, helped Eric to grow in his love for his Creator as well, that he really came to appreciate the Bible and get to know his Creator very closely. Eric, as mentioned, he very much loved his family, and he adored his great nieces and his nephew. He had a very close relationship with all of them. He also was a very loving, hands-on uncle, and he cared for his nephew and niece just like they were his own children. Jennifer and Michael, Eric, he loved sports, and he got to enjoy that with his nephew and niece. He got to go and watch Michael spending many hours at the hockey rink, at lacrosse rinks throughout Saskatchewan, throughout BC, and it brought him a lot of joy to see Michael doing that and to have that enjoyment of sports as well. He was even able to help his niece Jennifer with schoolwork. Eric, he was a studier, and so he was very good at helping. He also enjoyed going with her and attending the dance competitions that she was involved in. And it was mentioned, Eric was very proud of them, their accomplishments, and the mature adults that they turned out to be. Eric and Diane, they didn't initially hit it off in school. They went to the same high school in Saskatoon back in the 70s, but they didn't really know each other back then. It wasn't until later in the 80s that he and Diane started to develop a closer relationship, a friendship, and over the years, they built that friendship more and more to the point that they decided, this is my best friend, and I want to get married. So in April 2017, they got married to each other, and they enjoyed the years that they had together. Of course, they had that good friendship over many years, but now they could have a real close relationship as a married couple. And as Diane said, Eric was really a devoted husband that she cherished. Thinking about Eric's life, when he finished high school, he studied, and he went on to study to become an electrician, even studying some courses here in Moose Jaw at the Polytechnic. After he gained his diploma, his credentials, he went on to work for CN Rail in Saskatoon. He went and working on locomotives. He became very proficient at his job. People knew he was a good, smart guy. He could troubleshoot. He could work hard. And before he moved to Moose Jaw in the early 90s, he then worked here at CP Rail until his early retirement. And if you know Eric, he was a man of many passions, a lot of hobbies. He enjoyed getting involved in a lot of things, and he found joy in learning about things. He loved music, and that moved him to want to play music. So he got a guitar. He played guitar for many years. He learned guitar. In fact, more recently, I heard he had a banjo that he was working on so that he could learn that as well. So that guy just loved learning. He was really involved in things that he liked. He also liked to build. And I know my dad's mentioned his garage, his house. There's a lot of stuff there that he had parts. He had, he was always buying things because he liked building. He liked learning. He liked creating. And he even went and built his own ultralight plane in his driveway in Saskatoon. So, of course, if you've got an ultralight plane, you have to get a license to use it. So Eric did. He went and got his pilot's license. He loved flying that ultralight. In fact, I know he mentioned that, on a hot days, we've been having some hot days here. He liked to get on that ultralight and go up in the air because the nice cool breeze would blow on his face, and it was just a nice getaway to kind of refresh him and feel better. But Eric had other toys. He had toys on the ground too. He had a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, and he enjoyed taking that out for a ride. More recently, I remember Eric having a fuel-efficient scooter that he putted around town with, and he told me, the gas mileage I make on that thing, it's awesome. So he enjoyed having that as well. And I didn't even know he had a Corvette at one time that he enjoyed driving. And so there was a lot of things that brought Eric joy in these different things that he had to benefit from. Eric, as mentioned, he loved to learn. He was a very guy who was motivated to learn about different things. And that was, it was evident that he had a passion for learning. He was reading on subjects. A couple of his passions were electronics and chemistry. And he really put his focus on these things to get deeper understanding of them. You'd even find him at the coffee shop, McDonald's, A&W, with his books, reading and studying. And so, many of us were happy to get out of school. Eric just absorbed and wanted more knowledge and kept increasing on it. More recently, he was also a member of the Ham Radio Club in Saskatoon and Moose Jaw, and that brought him years of enjoyment. He got to meet a lot of new people. He got to develop new friendships, and he appreciated getting to know many more and sharing association with them. And who of us wouldn't enjoy traveling, especially winter? Eric got to enjoy that as well. Got to go to Mazatlan with his brother Marvin and his sister Sharon, getting away from the snow. I remember talking to him, asking, got your plans for the winter? Yep, getting out of here before the winter gets here. And he enjoyed getting down there because that salt air, the warm weather, it even helped him feel better. He'd come back a little pepped up ready for another summer. So it was nice to see him get that break and have that fun with his family. And of course, we know Eric too. He's a funny, quirky guy. He liked to joke around. He liked to tell jokes, be a little silly at times because he liked seeing people laugh. He liked to see them happy. And maybe, I've heard maybe it was Diane, says he had a weird sense of humor. Well, we all have a weird sense of humor at times. But, people could see he was a happy guy, and they enjoyed being with him, and he enjoyed having that friendship with many others and making them laugh. As well as mentioned, his mother taught him about the Bible and provided a encouragement for him to get to know his Creator. And Eric continued to attend the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses here for many years. He enjoyed the meetings. He liked going with Diane. He liked seeing his fellow brothers and sisters, associating with them, talking with them before and after meetings. He enjoyed giving Bible discourses that he was able to comfort or encourage the congregation by doing Bible readings. And, unfortunately, we faced this pandemic the last year and a half. We weren't able to meet together like we used to. But our meetings were still arranged on Zoom, and Eric liked that. He was able to get on Zoom, still enjoy the program, get to have a chance with brothers and sisters to talk to them and visit with them, and that really made him happy as well to have that. So Eric's faith, it was an important part of his life, as many would know. So as we just seen here, Eric was very much a loved man. He was friends. He had many friends. People liked him. He's easygoing to get along with. He's a devoted husband, a devoted brother, uncle, and friend to many. And that's why we're here today, because we enjoyed Eric's friendship. But as we know, losing a loved one like Eric in death, it can bring a wide range of emotions. It can be sorrow, loneliness, helplessness. These things can overwhelm us at times. And it's not surprising, because when we read the Bible, it says that death is an enemy. And so when the enemy death takes a loved one like Eric, it's hard for us. It's hard for us to accept. And it brings up these emotions of grief, and that's normal. Jesus, he lost a friend of his own named Lazarus. And it was not easy. He came, and here Lazarus was gone, and he seen his sisters weeping, seen the family and relatives wailing and weeping. And it was difficult for Jesus to see his friend gone and to see the hardships that his family and friends faced. So what did Jesus do? He provided comfort for those that were grieving. And that's why we're here today. We're gathered to show our support and comfort the family and friends of Eric. And this is a way for us to do so. As we read, I should say, of the highlights of Eric's life, we saw he was a curious guy. But because he was curious, it made him a good learner. He wanted to look into things. He wanted to understand things. He wanted to know how things work better so that he could be doing things the right way. He could improve things. And that's the kind of guy Eric was. That's why we see his hobbies. He put a lot of work into them because he became good at them as he studied about them and learned about them because he wanted to do them right. So that was the same with Eric's faith. He was a man of faith. And those same qualities of curiosity, they moved Eric to want to learn more about spiritual matters and questions that maybe many of us wonder about life, about suffering, about death, or what the future may hold. So Eric, just like he does with other things, he researched, he studied, he looked into things, and he found answers to questions from the Bible. And those things brought him comfort, and they brought him peace that helped him to deal with challenges of life and brought him peace to deal with them. So much so that Eric was moved by what he learned to dedicate his life to Jehovah and become one of Jehovah's Witnesses. So Eric, because he learned these things and they benefited him, there are some things he wanted us to share with you today that can benefit you and comfort you in this difficult time. So one thing Eric learned was that God is not just some impersonal force, but rather a spirit being that we can get to know. And when you know somebody well and you have a good friend, what do you know about them? You know their name. That helps us if you don't know somebody's name, how can they be your good friend? And so Eric learned God had a name, it's Jehovah. He studied about him, about his ways, his qualities, and he learned he was a God of wisdom, love, justice, and power. And the more he learned, the closer he drew to him, and the more he wanted to serve him. So one thing he learned that can help us today is that death was not in God's original purpose for mankind. A scripture that helps us to see why we face death is in Genesis chapter 2 and verses 15 to 17. And there it says, Jehovah God took the man and settled him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and to take care of it. Jehovah God also gave this command to the man, from every tree of the garden you may eat to satisfaction, but as for the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, you must not eat from it, for in the day you eat from it, you will certainly die. So what was God's original purpose? Well, he made Adam and Eve perfect. There was no problem, there was no sickness, there was no issues. They were well off. He put them in a beautiful garden called the Garden of Eden. It was a paradise condition, lush, beautiful greenery. Water was clean and clear, animals all around them. And so what did he want for them to do? He wanted for them to take care of that garden. He wanted them to have children, to expand and fill the earth with offspring, to take care of the animals and expand that beautiful paradise that they were put in so it encompassed the whole globe. What a wonderful opportunity. But as we see, he put a stipulation. There's just one tree here I don't want you to touch. This is a command. And what was the warning? If you do, you will die if you eat from it. So, unfortunately, we know the result. Adam and Eve, they didn't listen. They rebelled. They ate from that tree. And thus, they sinned against God. And as a result, their disobedience has brought about death for us. In fact, Romans 5 verse 12 shows why it affects us even. It says, that is why just as through one man sin entered into the world and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because they had all sinned. So that's exactly what happened. We are all descendants of Adam and Eve. Once they sinned, once they were deliberately disobedient, they lost that perfection that God gave them from the beginning. They lost that prospect of everlasting life. And this caused them to undergo a physical change where They were imperfect, they were sinful, and so that's what they could pass on to us, was sin and death. And that's why it's hard for us to face, because we don't want to die. We're not made to want to die. We're made to want to live. We find it hard to accept death. And that's why, because of that mistake, we have inherited this, and it's difficult when we lose loved ones or have to face death. So Eric, even though we know Eric had issues in his life, struggles, health problems, I remember that poor guy, hearing him talk to me, I had to take those deep breaths, And I just felt, that poor guy, that's hard. I mean, I've got some asthma and I've had issues like that, not like him, but that's not easy. That's hard to deal with. But Eric, he didn't let that pull him down. He stayed positive. He didn't dwell on it, like, look at me, look at the hardships I'm facing. He was happy. He wanted to make you happy. And so that was encouraging to talk with Eric. But notice too that when Eric had these issues, he never feared death. Why is that? Why was he not fearful of death? Well, again, it's because of what the Bible taught him. The Bible clearly tells us what the condition of the dead is. In Ecclesiastes chapter 9 and verse 5. Ecclesiastes 9 and 5 says, "For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing at all, nor do they have any more reward, because all memory of them is forgotten." Well, what does that mean? It says the dead know nothing at all. It means that those who have died are in an unconscious state. Have you ever had that feeling yourself? Maybe you went and had a nice deep sleep, and you didn't hear nothing. You just one of your best sleeps. Maybe you've had surgery and you've had to go under anesthesia. What do you remember from your surgery? Do you remember what they did to you? Do you remember what was going on? How much time went on? No. You're unconscious. You're just in an unconscious state. You don't know what's happening around you. And so that is what the Bible describes that death is like. So Eric right now, unfortunately, we don't get to enjoy his association, but he's not suffering. He's not in any problems. He's in a peaceful, restful sleep right now. Eric also learned that even though we face these problems, God is not going to let them continue. He has a plan to end mankind's problems and bring about a better future for us. And that gave him peace of mind. He read that God had a hope that was sure to be realized. And that's shown for us in Revelation 21, in verse 4. It says there, "And he will wipe out every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more. Neither will mourning, nor outcry, nor pain be any more. The former things have passed away." Do you notice the things that are promised for the future? Just imagine, no more tears, no more mourning or outcry or pain. What a relief that will be from what we're living in today, isn't it? No more death. Wow, that is something that we truly want to see, death done away with. But not only is there a promise that these things will end, these problems, but there's also a promise that millions such as Eric who have died can live again. Maybe that's a new thought for us. But when we think about the Bible's comparison to death being like a sleep, you can go and wake somebody up from their sleep. Well, God has the power to wake up our dead loved ones from the sleep of death. He has that ability. In fact, when we look at the Bible record, there's many resurrections recorded in the Bible of people who have come back and raised up from the dead. Jesus himself, when he was on earth, performed these resurrections. And he didn't do it in secret. It wasn't like nobody knew about it. There was eyewitnesses in front of people. There was a funeral going on where he resurrected the child of a widow. Everybody saw it. They were amazed that he came back to life. And that's the same hope the Bible holds out for us, that the resurrection hope made possible by Jesus' ransom is going to happen in the future as well. Just as Jesus performed on a small scale those resurrections when he was a human here on earth, he has been appointed by God again to raise the dead in the future, a future resurrection. In fact, we have confidence by this scripture in John chapter 5 and verses 28 and 29. It says, "Do not be amazed at this, for the hour is coming in which all those in the memorial tombs will hear his voice and come out. Those who did good things to a resurrection of life, and those who practice vile things to a resurrection of judgment." So it's interesting here, Jesus used the words memorial tombs when he was expressing this. And that's because God's memory is involved in our loved ones and seeing them again. Now, this may seem hard to think about. All the millions of people who have died, can God resurrect them? Can he remember everything he needs to about them, their qualities, their makeup, their personality? Well, I'm just going to share a little thought here that helps us to put it in perspective. Astronomers estimate that there are about 100 billion stars just in our Milky Way galaxy alone. Now, although we know it's impossible to really know exactly how many stars exist in the universe, they estimate that there may be roughly 70 billion trillion stars in the universe. So to help us comprehend that, that's a 7 with 22 zeros behind it. That's a lot of stars. Now, the scriptures in Isaiah mentions God, knows them all by name. 70 billion trillion stars, he knows by name, and because of his vast dynamic energy and awe-inspiring power. He's the one who created them, and he named them. So when you think of that amazing ability of our Creator, then if he can remember those stars, easily he can remember details about all those that he is going to bring back to life, such as Eric. More important, he created everything. So he has that power to give life again, to restore life for our loved ones. He can remember their natural, their acquired traits, and bring them back with that. And not only does he say he's going to do it, he desires to do it. He wants to see these ones back. He wants to see them alive again. So this was the hope Eric had. He had that hope when he lost loved ones, to know that he can see them again. And even though he knew he had health problems that could result in his passing away, and did, that he had that hope he could be brought back by his Creator. And that was a great aid to him, a comfort to know that he could live back in that original paradise that God created, not having ailments, not having problems, being healthy, rejoicing with family, friends once again. So we've seen some comforting thoughts to help us to cope. First of all, death's not normal. That's why it's hard for us to accept. To know that a loved one in death is just unconscious. He's not suffering. He's not in pain or anything. They're just in a sleep-like state. And also to know that our Creator, he promises to end our problems, to even bring back our loved ones, is such a comforting thought to know he remembers them that much. So how can we benefit again by being here gathered together? Well, a funeral like this can help remind us of the brevity and the uncertainty of life. It can aid us to maybe think about our life and think about how we're using it. Do we have purpose? Do we have meaning in our lives? Or just kind of going through the motions, thinking we'd like to do more? Well, Eric, he did that. He searched for answers to troubling questions that plague many people today. Dealing with the hardships of life can be overwhelming, but this encouraged him. And he made adjustments in his life because he wanted to make a good name with his Creator. He learned that his ways were the best. He followed them, and it benefited him very much. In fact, one more scripture that shows us how important a good name can be is in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 1 and 2. In Ecclesiastes 7, verse 1 and 2, it says, "A good name is better than good oil, and the day of death is better than the day of birth. Better to go to the house of mourning than to the house of feasting, for that is the end of every man, and every living thing should take it to heart." So here in this verse, it mentions that the day of death is better than the day of birth. Well, does that make sense? We think of the day of a birth, everybody's happy. We're seeing a new life, a young child being born. It brings us inner happiness and joy to see that, if he wanted that child. So it just shows that we would be in a happy time. Whereas now, we've lost a loved one, and now we're sad. So how can the day of death be better than the day of birth? Well, it's because when you have that little baby, it's just this small human, and parents have given the baby a name, but I look at the baby, okay, Dave or Bob or whatever your baby's name is, it's a person. But there's no personality to that baby yet. It's just a new life. But as time goes on, that baby will grow up, and they'll make decisions. They'll become adults and persons who have made good or bad decisions, and that will give a reputation to the name of that baby. And so the same is true today. For those who have established a good name, just like Eric has, he's known as a loving, caring family man. We learn about his interests. When we hear his name, we relate a reputation to that name now. So that's why on the day of his death, we're discussing his good reputation and how he's known. That's why it can be better than a day of birth when it's just a clean slate. So too, we have a choice. We have many choices in life to do things that make a good reputation for our name so that others appreciate who we are, and that if we can make a good name with our Creator too, that's most important. And we know Eric, he did that. Again, the resurrection hope we talked about, it may be a new thought for some, but isn't that a loving thought to think that our Creator wants to see our loved ones again, wants us to be united with them again? It really shows his love for us. And so that may move us to want to learn more about the truth of God's word and learn about what his plans are to eradicate our problems and our sorrows today. Those who do so will be certain to be able to enjoy that blessing of seeing Eric again and uniting with him. Another benefit we have of gathering together is we want to use this occasion, as we mentioned from the beginning, to provide comfort and encouragement for one another. You know, at the death, it's hard right at this time. It's new circumstances, it's changes. But down the road, weeks or days, there's going to be other challenges. You know, we're going to be down, we're going to feel sad. That's where we can build one another up, provide encouragement for family, friends, with each other. Think about maybe some of those hopes that we discussed that will encourage us and help us to deal with that. And we can even offer practical assistance to show our care for Eric's family and friends. So we know that today, unfortunately, many feel with the problems of life that God is not taking an interest in us. But as Eric learned, as we've seen just from a few verses, the Bible clearly shows that our God does care for us, that he wants to eliminate our suffering. We know life can be filled with distresses, worries, uncertainties, and hurt, disappointments, but don't despair. Jehovah God, our Creator, cares. He lovingly invites us to seek him for support. And when we do feel those times of feelings overwhelming us, hardships, turn to him, seek his help in prayer, and he will provide strength until the day he can bring those permanent reliefs that he has promised. So we want to thank you all for attending today, for showing your support for the family and friends of Eric. The family would like to invite you to remain too if you can. There's a small lunch in the next tea room so we can enjoy some fellowship and association as well. And to conclude our service today, we're going to invite you to stand if you're able, to sing a song that will be posted. It's a song from that Eric enjoyed, that we all do, because it reminds us of these hopes that we have, that the Bible brought out, and it can encourage us and build us up. It's from our songbook. It's 151, He Will Call. So we're going to sing that song, and then the words will be displayed there. If you like to sing, you're welcome. And then we'll conclude with a word of prayer.